Hi there, I'm Matthew Bennett, and welcome to episode 2 of this educational series on transitioning from photography to cinematography. So you've decided to move from still images to motion images. Now, with smartphones and the ubiquitous nature of technology, I can be almost sure you've shot some type of video image at this point. So let's agree theoretically that you're working at a more serious level, and the overall goal is to take the energy and feeling of what you do in your photography practice and continue that artistic exploration into cinematography. So what's actually happening in the most basic sense? What are you adding? You're taking an aesthetic you've developed in still images and simply adding time, movement, and editing. Let's go through those concepts one by one. Time, because the motion shot you produce will take up a certain amount of time. Unlike a still image, which is effectively in its same form forever, a video or film shot takes place over a specific, finite amount of time. It can be watched partially, replayed, manipulated in speed, and so on. Movement, because there will always be something moving in your image, changing, however subtly. No two frames are exactly alike. And editing, because there will always be something cut away from the shot to make it into its final form. The basic concept of editing is that different shots will come up against each other in time and have a great effect on what preceded them or proceeded them. So now that we understand those basic translations, let's look at some of the opportunities that this provides us with. Let's start with time. Let's say, for instance, you like low-key lighting, with the main light behind the subject only making the edges of the face visible. We can take that same lighting aesthetic and technique you've built up the skill to accomplish, and by adding time, we can play with it a little. What about revealing the light? For instance, create your setup and simply turn the lights off. Because we're now working with time, nothing has to happen all at once. You can turn on or fade up the lights, eventually reaching your main light, and thus adding or revealing the main lighting event in your shot. Let's continue to movement. Just by simply tilting the camera up and down, you can further reveal your main event, so to speak. You have probably experienced by now the subtle differences of reflected light that can be caused by having a model bring her hands up into the photo. Light bounces off the skin and back into the face. So motion of the actor or subject can also create a reveal effect by moving into the final form of the image. Finally, editing. One of the key selections of the totality of your motion image is deciding where to cut, what to show. You're most likely never going to use the entirety of your shot as per the video file. There will always be some trimming and juxtaposition. So what does it look like suddenly cutting to a slightly different angle? What does it look like cutting to a radically different angle? What about a long fade between two different focal lengths? The possibilities are almost infinite here. And it will become a very important part of the presentation of your artistic intent in this process. Now, I'm sure you've been watching films and television up to this point, and some of these might seem like cartoonishly simple concepts. It's always good to go back to basics and simply remind yourself of the great opportunities that are presented to you when making a motion shot. In the end, it's up to you to take these basic concepts to heart. Do a little self-interrogation and see what they mean to you. If you're a landscape photographer, what does time mean to you? Does it mean the movement of the wind in the trees, a time lapse of sun moving through the rocks? If you're a street photographer, time might mean the few milliseconds that you have to capture a great moment as it unfolds. Furthermore, with movement, is the movement of your personal style erratic, still, focused, etc.? Take it one step further to editing. Is your vision of the world comprised of fast, short cuts or long, composed and meditative shots? Try to reflect on these basic concepts every time you're conceiving of a cinematic image. The more personal the ideas of time, movement, and editing are to you, the more your natural aesthetic will be strengthened and highlighted by those choices. In the next episode, we'll look at another case study and what pitfalls you can avoid in order to maintain your voice and add strength to what you already bring as a photographer.